You've spent your whole life trying not to get hurt. You shrink yourself in relationships. You replay every conversation. You walk on emotional eggshells, hoping this time it won't collapse. But here's the truth. Hurt is not something you can avoid. It's something you must learn how to face. Because if you don't, you become a prisoner of other people's moods, opinions, and betrayals. Your peace will always depend on their chaos. And Carl Jung saw the cost of this clearly. When you give your pain to others, you give them your power. But when you own it, truly own it, nothing and nobody will ever hurt you again. Most people don't realize how much they're still bleeding. You say you've moved on, that you've healed, that the past is the past. But watch how fast your voice changes when someone raises that topic. Watch how quickly you shut down when someone makes that joke. Watch how small you become when someone treats you like they did. Your wound isn't gone, you've just buried it. But what we bury doesn't die. It festers, and it makes you reactive, defensive, silent, explosive. Jung called this the shadow, the parts of you that stay hidden because you were never allowed to feel them. But here's the brutal truth. You cannot outgrow what you refuse to face. Maybe it was a parent, a partner, a friend, a bully. Whoever it was, they did more than hurt you. They shaped you. They taught you not to trust, not to speak, not to expect anything. And now, you think you're protecting yourself, but you're still playing by their rules. You flinch before you speak. You doubt your worth. You anticipate rejection, even from people who've never given you a reason to. And Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. It's not fate. It's the echo of pain you haven't reclaimed yet. You keep waiting to feel strong enough, whole enough, healed enough, but that day never comes, because healing isn't a light switch. It's a confrontation. It starts the moment you stop running and turn around to face what you spent years pretending didn't break you. You don't need closure. You need courage. Not to forgive them yet, not to understand them, but to finally let the scream rise. The grief, the rage, the terror, not to perform it, to release it. Jung called this the integration of the shadow, and it doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in truth. Look closely. That voice telling you, you're not enough. That wasn't yours. That reflex to apologize before you speak, not yours. That shame that tightens your throat when you feel joy, pride, or desire, also not yours. They planted those voices. You just kept feeding them. And now they've become part of your identity. But they are not who you are. Carl Jung believed the shadow isn't evil. It's repressed power. And that voice inside you, the one that doubts, that withholds, that judges, isn't your conscience. It's a scared version of you trying to survive. You don't need to silence it. You need to rescue it. But how do you rescue the parts of yourself you've learned to hate? How do you confront the inner voice that keeps you trapped in pain? In the next section, we'll uncover Jung's key insight. Why the shadow isn't your enemy. It's your path to becoming untouchable. You've been taught that your shadow is dangerous. Anger, shameful, desire, dirty, sadness, weak. So you push those feelings down. You put on the good mask. You tried to be liked, safe, small. But Jung turned that story upside down. He said the shadow isn't evil. It's incomplete. It holds your intensity, your power, your capacity to speak up, to walk away, to draw a line. And the longer you suppress it, the more it controls you from the dark. You don't become free by being nice. You become free by being whole. That means letting the lion out of the cage, not to destroy, but to defend, to finally stop abandoning yourself just to stay comfortable. At some point, you learned how to survive. You became the peacemaker, the fixer, the one who kept the room calm, even when your insides were burning. And it worked. You stayed safe. But now you're not in that room anymore. You're still living by its rules, still editing your truth, still swallowing your boundaries, still reading every face like a threat. Jung would call this a trauma-driven personality, an adaptive self. You crafted it to avoid pain. but now it avoids life. No wonder you feel hollow. You're living as a version of yourself that was built to survive, not to thrive. Let's be clear, facing your shadow isn't about unleashing chaos. It's not permission to hurt others. It's an invitation to stop hurting yourself, to finally look at your envy and learn what it says about your buried hunger, to explore your anger and find the boundary it's trying to protect, to sit with your fear and discover the part of you still waiting to be held. You can't become whole by amputating the ugly parts. You become whole by reclaiming them, by saying, yes, I am this too. Yes, this lives in me. Yes, I will meet it, not with shame, but with curiosity. That's not indulgence, that's power. The less you accept in yourself, the more you react to it in others. You judge what you suppress. You resent what you envy. You reject what you secretly long for. That's why people still hurt you, not because they're stronger, but because they reflect your unhealed parts. The moment you own your shadow, they lose their grip. You stop needing validation. You stop fearing rejection. You stop living like a mirror and start living from your core. Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. You want to stop being hurt? Don't become harder, become deeper, not defensive, integrated. That's how you become untouchable. Not because nothing affects you, but because nothing defines you anymore. But what about the people who still have power over you? What if the wound wasn't just emotional, but betrayal, abandonment, even abuse? In the next part, we explore how to take back power from the people who broke you without needing them to change, apologize, or even understand. They left you with a mess, a broken heart, an unanswered question, a wound they'll never take responsibility for. So you wait for an apology, for an explanation, for them to come back and finally make it right. But here's the brutal truth. They won't. And even if they did, it wouldn't heal you, because healing doesn't come from them. It comes from reclaiming what they took, your right to define your own story. Jung understood this deeply. He believed the psyche doesn't need revenge. It needs ownership. You don't need closure. You need to look at the wreckage and decide, this ends with me. Not when they change, not when they hurt like you did, now. Forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. It's about taking yourself off it. It doesn't mean trusting them again. It doesn't mean pretending it didn't matter. It means you stop giving your nervous system to their memory. You stop living inside the moment they broke you. You stop worshiping the pain like a god, because sometimes the most radical act of power is this: I refuse to carry what you refuse to clean up. That's not weakness, that's liberation. Forgiveness isn't for them. It's a gift you give to the part of you that deserves to be free. You want fairness, you want the scales balanced, you want the universe to care as much as you do. But Jung saw something more important than justice: transcendence. He believed our suffering isn't meaningless, but it becomes a trap the moment we insist it must be repaid. The truth is, life won't always give you what you're owed, but it will always give you yourself. Every time you resist becoming bitter, every time you stay kind without being naive, every time you speak your truth without begging to be understood, you reclaim your spirit. And one day, you realize you didn't get justice. You got something far more rare. You got peace on your terms. You've carried it so long, you think it's part of you. The trust issues, the flinches, the shame around being too much or not enough. But it's not who you are. It's who you became to survive what happened. There is a deeper you underneath the armor, the exhaustion, the carefulness. A wild, unbreakable you, the one who danced before they judged, the one who loved without bargaining, the one who felt everything without apology. That part of you is not dead. It's waiting, not for a miracle, but for a moment of permission. Let this be it. Here's the secret Jung discovered. You're not trying to avoid hurt anymore. You're learning how to return faster, softer, wiser. You will still get disappointed. You will still feel loss, but you won't be taken by it. You won't be defined by it. You won't let it become your home, because now you know the way back to presence, back to truth, back to yourself. And that is what makes you untouchable. Not because the world stops hurting you, but because nothing outside of you gets to own your soul again. But what about the fear that still lingers? The anxiety before love, the dread before trust. In the next part, we'll expose the final illusion that keeps you trapped and reveal Jung's most unexpected insight about power, pain, and the path to real emotional immunity. You think fear is your friend, that it keeps you safe, that it stops you from getting burned again. But fear is a liar. It doesn't protect, it prevents. It keeps you from saying what you need, from loving fully, from walking into the room like you belong there. It whispers, be careful, but it really means be invisible. Jung knew this kind of fear wasn't just survival, it was a ghost, a phantom built by past wounds still haunting your present. And here's the irony. The more you fear being hurt, the more you become a target for it. Because fear makes you passive, silent, predictable, and nothing bleeds power faster than a life built on avoidance. You've been told that strength means control, that being unbothered means being healed. But look deeper. True strength isn't numbness, it's capacity. The capacity to feel the full weight of grief and not drown. The capacity to love with no guarantee and not close. The capacity to be broken and still choose to stand. Jung didn't believe in avoiding pain. He believed in becoming large enough to carry it, not by force, but by inner expansion. You don't become invincible by hardening. You become invincible by widening, by becoming a self that can hold all of it, joy and terror, rage and tenderness, without collapsing. That's not weakness, that's soul. You get triggered. You feel the heat rise. You want to lash out, withdraw, shut down. And in those moments you think, this is who I am. But that's not true. You are not your reaction. You are the one watching it. Jung taught that consciousness is the first step to liberation. The moment you can see the trigger without becoming it, you've already begun the alchemy. It's not about never being triggered again. It's about becoming so deeply aware that no reaction owns you. You become the space, the stillness, the grounded presence that says, yes, I feel this, but I will choose what happens next. And that choice, that's your freedom. Don't be surprised when people around you get uncomfortable, when you stop over-explaining, when you stop absorbing guilt, when you stop making yourself smaller so they can feel big. They'll call you cold, selfish, changed. And they'll be right. You have changed because you've stopped trading your sanity for approval. You've stopped letting their unhealed parts dictate your worth. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And when you do, expect resistance. But know this, their discomfort is not a sign that you're wrong. It's proof that your peace is real. When you reclaim yourself, love transforms. It's no longer a transaction. It's not about filling holes, soothing wounds, or proving value. It's a gift, freely given, never bargained, never begged for. You stop loving to be loved. You love because you are love, and it overflows. You stop chasing people to fix you. You start choosing people who can meet you, and suddenly relationships stop hurting you because you no longer enter them from emptiness. You enter them from wholeness. That's not detachment. That's real intimacy, and it begins the moment you stop asking, who will love me, and start asking, how can I love without losing myself? But what happens when the world pushes back, when chaos comes, when life tests your center again? In the final part, we'll uncover the deepest layer of Jung's teaching, the mindset shift that makes you emotionally bulletproof, no matter what happens outside you. Let's be clear, this isn't a promise that life will stop being painful. It's not about perfect boundaries, permanent peace, or emotional immunity. The world will still challenge you. People will still misunderstand you. Moments will still trigger the ache you thought you buried. But here's the difference. You're not the same person who got broken the first time. Now you don't collapse, you observe. You don't beg, you breathe. You don't run, you return to yourself. This is the secret Jung left for us between the lines. True power doesn't mean you never fall. It means you stop forgetting who you are when you do. You want a calm life, but you don't get strong in the calm. You get strong in the chaos. When you stay grounded while everything else shakes. When you stay soft while they throw fire. When you stay centered while life tries to pull you apart. That's when you become unshakable. Jung believed individuation, the journey toward the true self, wasn't about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And that process, it happens in the storm, not despite it. Read this again. Nobody gets to define your worth. Not the parent who criticized everything. Not the partner who left you hollow. Not the boss, the friend, the voice in your own head. They don't know the whole you. They never did. They saw your shadow and thought it was weakness, but they didn't see the courage it took to keep going. Jung's legacy isn't a psychological theory. It's a spiritual one. You are not the sum of your pain. You are the soul that refused to die inside it. That matters. You matter, even when they don't see it, especially when they don't. You've been told to fix yourself, to improve, to optimize, to rise and grind. But what if the real revolution isn't self-improvement, it's self-remembrance, to rebel against shame, to rise against self-abandonment, to declare, I am whole, even here. That's not comfort. That's war against every lie that said you were only lovable when quiet, pretty, productive, or polite. Let this be your rebellion, not to fight others, but to stop fighting yourself. Here's what you've built. A self that doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. A voice that doesn't need to be heard to speak the truth. A soul that doesn't need to win to be powerful. Let them talk. Let them doubt you. Let them misunderstand the peace in your eyes. Because they can't hurt you anymore. Not because you've become numb, but because you've become real. And nothing, not the past, not the pain, not the people who broke you, can touch what's real. That's the Jungian promise, not that life gets easier, but that you become someone who can walk through the fire and not be burned. Now I want to ask you something real. What's one part of yourself you've spent years running from that you're now ready to reclaim? Leave it in the comments. Let this be your line in the sand, your moment of return. And if this video gave you a sense of strength, insight, or clarity, help it reach someone who needs it. Give it a like, and let the algorithm work for something good. And if you're walking this path, this bold, painful, beautiful path toward inner wholeness, join our community, subscribe and click the bell so you never miss another soul-cutting truth. Until next time, keep shining, not to be seen, but to see.